Thanks for joining us this week on Email Geeks at Home Drinking Coffee. Join your hosts Chris Marriott and Paul Schreiner each week as they talk email marketing, life, purpose, faith, but mainly email marketing. If you're looking for some normalcy in these crazy times, you've come to the right place.
Welcome back to Email Geeks at Home Drinking Coffee. With me today is the great and powerful
Chris Marriott. Good to be with you, Paul. Good to be with you,
Great.
folks. Good to be back here with Email
As
Geeks.
always, it is good to be back. And honestly, Chris, this series of sort of looking at founders, telling the stories of an industry that's sort of been neglected a bit has been such a cool experience. And today's episode, I would say it starts a little bit slow. That's maybe the overly true part of it, but I do think we hit a stride that's really interesting. So I'm excited to share that with the team, especially as we start to sort of compare one founder to another, because it is an interesting comparison.
And I think, again, bear with us today. I mean, there's a very interesting discussion about sort of the waves of consolidation in the email industry and, who the early ESPs were. Again, innovation. So I think, it as Paul said, the value of the Founders series is that we're capturing both people and stories about the origins of email marketing that most of us, don't know today, and nor should they, because they have started in the last few years, but that are good perspective, I think, just to have. If you love email marketing, knowing where we came from is important. And again, we're not completing the story today. It's it's an 8-episode Founders season, but it's another piece in the puzzle of where did we all come from? Where did this industry come from? So we're very excited for today's episode, and hope you enjoyed it as much.
And it's brought to you by the good folks at Audience Point and Email Connect, which weirdly we both represent, but yes. It's important that we give them a shout out because they have carved off time. They have invested resources into us being able to put this show together. And so, thanks Audience Point, the work that we're doing right now, I think, is worth showcasing. There was a gentleman on Email Geeks this morning talking about how he's getting squeezed super hard by Microsoft in terms of deliverability. And our solution there is we take the subscribers on his list that aren't engaging with anyone else, and we suppress them on his list, and his deliverability will be fixed. So, it's cool to get into these kinds of solutions where we can quickly, tactically sort of swoop in, use a scalpel, cut out the bad parts, and things are repaired. So Thanks, Audience Point.
Yeah, thanks, Audience Points, and thanks the suits at Email Connect for also supporting our efforts here. Again, as those of you who don't know Email Connect, we are here to help brands select the right ESP partner and help you navigate through the RFP process and help you get a great deal. And a lot of you are going to be RFPing this year, a lot of delayed RFPs from 2020, as well as the ones that were already planned for 2021. And we're here to help you at any point in the process, from beginning to end, or when you reach a point where you can't go any further, give us a call. We're happy to
help. There you go. And without any further ado,
let's go to the show, and we'll see you on the other side with fan favorite producer David Inman. And we're back. And our guest today is my friend Chris Donald. He's CEO of Inbox Group, managing partner of Inbox Army. He's been, as befits our Founders series, he's been in the email marketing world 25 years, which is kind of stretching back to the very first. You can't go back really any further than 25 years and still say it's email marketing.
I think even 25, it's 25 years is probably a stretch. Don't you think?
Well, it's the first year I sent a campaign to a list of multiple people.
There you go, Paul. But now don't interrupt my intro, because I've got some more. I spent time on this intro. So Inbox Army where he's managing partner, is an email marketing agency specializing in providing email marketing services soup to nuts, from production to deployment. He's worked directly with a number of Fortune 500 companies. Maybe we'll hear some of those stories today. He's been in his success and track record covers email marketing programs at competitive email marketing pricing. This is Inbox Army, and using data-driven strategies to turn around underperforming accounts. So to sum that up, he's been in the business a long time, and he runs one of the leading email marketing agencies in the United States and globally today. So we're delighted to have you here, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Boy, I feel better about myself now.
You know, it's always good.
Right. Anytime Marriott can talk about you in the intro, Chris, intro me next. Would you mind?
Yeah. No, I'm gonna sit up a little better here, maybe.
A little taller.
Yeah, Paul. The problem is, Paul, you wouldn't. I'm not sure you qualify for the Founders Series.
I don't. No, I qualify for the Flounders Series, Chris.
Right,
the Flounders Series.
Yeah,
right.
People who flounder.
Like the Animal House flounder.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
that would work, right?
Good cultural reference.
There you go.
All right, so Paul, what are you drinking today? Before we get into the real fun and games.
I'm drinking mocha pot coffee, really strong. Lots of caffeine. Coffee. Just I got that for Christmas and have really enjoyed it.
Excellent. And Chris Donald, the other Chris.
Looks like water, but it's straight vodka. No, I'm only kidding. It's water.
Well, and you started to launch into why you were drinking water, and I cut you off.
Yeah. So working from home, what we found with everybody working from home is productivity actually went up. Right? Interestingly enough. And part of it is you can't get away from it because it's here, right?
Yep.
But also, when I sit at my desk and I start working, sometimes it's hours before I get up. Or it was when I first started, doing this, right? And I also found out I wasn't really drinking a lot of fluids either because I was just sitting at my desk. Yep. So now I've turned my phone down so I have no volume, but every hour, an alarm goes off telling me, get up, walk around, go get a drink of water.
Well, that's nice.
And it kind of forces me to remember to just get up, move around, right?
Yeah.
So that's why the water. It's just stay hydrated, and because it's we have gas heat in the house. It's winter, and it's dry anyway, right? So it works.
Well, drink that water.
You got to get those humidifiers on in the winter, and
we have them in the bedrooms. I don't have one in my office. I don't know why. I just don't.
They're very tricky. We have one on our furnace back in Chicago, and I'll say when there are so many levers I have to turn as the seasons change to get the humidifier running. It's a challenge.
The built-in ones are a little better, and we have some portable ones that work fine. But it's cleaning them and changing all the stuff. It's a bit of a pain in the neck, but it's still worth it. You don't wake up dry and. Throat.
Well, right. No, nobody wants to wake up with dry nose. That's for sure.
No, they don't. Chris Marriott, what are you drinking today?
Well, I've got my Fairhope Alabama coffee mug, bright cherry yellow, and it's filled with, you guessed it, folks, Santo Domingo coffee from the Dominican Republic.
I thought it might be the Cafe du Monde or something.
Yeah, that's also very nice. Chris, you should switch.
No, I would have too much fun. Too much fun with the Santo Domingo coffee, and every time I take a sip of it, I think about your failed vacation, all expense paid vacation.
And I appreciate that.
Did you go to the Dominican?
I was supposed to.
Oh, here, Paul, tell the story.
Yeah, right before the pandemic hit, or right as it was hitting, we had an all expense paid trip down to Dominican Republic for a week. Just my wife and I. My mother-in-law was coming out to watch our 5 children. Really looking forward to it. Chris is right. And then all of a sudden, no one leaves the country. Everyone stays at home, and so.
And that was it.
That was it. And so we're fast approaching the 1-year anniversary of not going to the Dominican Republic. So I'm grateful, Chris, that you showed that today.
Well,
Great. You have 5 kids?
Yeah, yeah.
Are they all yours? I'm just kidding. No.
I think so. How do you know?
I have no idea, you know. They always used to say I was from the mailman, because everybody in my family has dark brown, almost black hair. And I was blonde when I was younger. It's darker now. And I'm also the only one with hazel eyes, as everybody else has dark brown eyes. So the joke was, the mailman or something, right? So,
well, you're not terribly wrong. We have 4 biological, and our 5th is adopted from Ethiopia.
Oh, very good for you.
Yeah, she's fantastic, and we love having her a part of our family. What's that?
Our fans know her. She's been on the program even.
She sure has. Yeah,
once or twice she's been on. But I just wanted to add. I mean, not that we don't love hearing about Paul's family, and
I think we should do a whole show on it, Chris.
They're featured. They've been featured on the program. But I've never gotten any of my kids on. Anyway, I have been to the Dominican Republic, Chris, and let me tell you something. It's glorious. It's
pretty nice.
Vacation there in Punta Cana. It is absolutely glorious, and
people are nice there too.
They really are.
Yeah, Paul would have had a unbelievably great time there. I mean, he'd still be walking.
Oh my goodness,
he'd still be walking on sunshine. But
that's true.
One day.
Actually, I was in January of 2020 before.
So you were smart. Crap. You went before.
Well, yeah, I was in Thailand and Dubai and India, right?
Okay.
And it was interesting because when I was in Dubai, there's a lot of changeover, and even in Thailand, a lot of Chinese people in Thailand. They vacation there a lot. They're really nearby. And I saw that they all wear masks. They wear masks all the time. Mostly for pollution reasons at home, I think, is why they all wear. I mean, obviously now they do, but pollution-wise. But even when I was in Dubai, I saw them, and I saw people even wearing like those full white suits you put on, like if you're going to crawl in your attic or something, right? And that was in January, right? And I felt like I had just dodged a bullet. I did get sick when I went from Thailand to India. I got really sick, and I had a temperature of 100, almost 103.
Okay.
And head cold, and everything hurt, and so I went to a doctor in India. They gave me some prescriptions. Felt better after a couple of days, but I said, should I come into the office, because we have a team over in India? And I said, should I come into the office? I said, I don't want to get anybody sick. And he just laughed and he said, come on in. I said, why'd you laugh? He said, we have really better immune systems than you do. Because India, right?
Right.
It was just one of those things. So, but yeah, I'm glad I still got to do that trip for sure. I was supposed to do some other trips, and like all of us, we didn't get to.
Well, I'm curious. You started to talk a little bit about, sort of first campaign 25 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of like wizardry there, right? You saw this medium of email, right? Mm-hmm. You had been emailing, and there was something that said, I should try and send promotional content through this. Talk a little bit about what you sent, why you sent it, what was the process there?
Yeah, so basically what happened is I had a job. I was selling alarm systems for a company. Interestingly, that company's headquarters used to be where I live now, just north of where I used to live now, but it was in Deerfield Beach down in Florida, right?
Yep. Okay.
Just north of Fort Lauderdale. And I had been the salesman there. I had fractured my back, fell off a ladder back then, and couldn't install anymore. I used to be an installer, was an electrician before that. And so he asked me to do sales. I said, I don't want to do sales because the salesmen are scumbags, and I don't want to be a scumbag again. And he said, well, you can sell any way you want, Chris. You can be the most honest salesman that walked the earth. I don't care. But I think you'd be good at it. Yeah.
Right.
So I did do that. And for the next 2 years, I was the top salesman every year. In fact, the only salesman at that point who had ever sold a project over $1 million, right, to a high rise.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's also when they changed their commission structure after that.
Right.
Because that's always what happens, right? When you're a sales guy. Oh, wait a minute, you sold too much, right?
How much?
Anyway,
right.
Yeah. Well, 15% of 1.4 million will wake you up in a hurry.
Yeah, it goes a long ways.
Yeah. So
particularly 25 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, more than 25 years ago for that, right?
Okay,
Yeah. So a new company bought them, and they came in, and they had everybody coming in for meetings. I went in for my interview, and they said, "Hey, we're really glad to have you here. You've been top sales guy every month for 2 years, and we're really looking excited." By the way, back then, I was the only salesman who didn't wear a shirt and tie, right? Slacks. My hair happened to be down to the middle of my back, so I generally had a ponytail.
Okay.
And I wore a polo shirt and jeans. No matter where I went, that's what I wore. Because I think it's easier to talk to somebody in a polo shirt than it is a shirt and tie. You put up a wall when that guy comes in, right? So they said, "Hey, but you're gonna have to cut your hair and wear a shirt and tie." And I said, "Okay." So we got out of the thing, went home that night, and I said, "You know what? I'm not going to do that." And just a stupid line in the sand, right? I'm still relatively young then, right? I'm 32, 33. So I went in the next day and said, "I'm giving you my 2-week notice." "Oh, wait a minute. Why? Well, I don't want to cut my hair. I want to wear a shirt and a tie." "Oh, you don't have to." "Sorry, I already made up my mind." And literally, I left 2 weeks later. And what I did was I sold everything I owned, including my house, my car, furniture, everything but clothes, a tent, and a motorcycle. And I drove to Key West. Decided I was moving to Key West. So I camped for a couple of weeks and eventually got a job at a sign shop. Worked there for a bit. Then I worked at the radio station selling airtime, commercials on the radio station. WOZN. The Ozone, it was. It's funny, we used to get requests from Cuba because Cuba's 90 miles away, and it was a 100-watt station in Key West.
Oh, wow.
Right? So anyway.
Play some Hall & Oates, please.
Yeah.
They probably wanted Miami Sound Machine over there in Cuba.
Right. Gloria Estefan.
Probably.
Yeah, exactly.
But they actually liked the rock music. They played it, the taxis used to play it everywhere over there. So anyway, that's when I bought my first computer. So I was 33, bought my first computer, and just the computer made sense to me, right? It was easy to work on for me. I got on the internet. I did the old view source and started looking at HTML, right? And started trying to build web pages, sort of edit the code that I was copying and move things around. I bought a HTML for Dummies type of book. It wasn't that one, but it was something like that. And so I built a website called Key West Paradise for travel, right? Where we'd list hotels and all that stuff. And I found a guy who owned FloridaKeys.com and KeyWest.com. And I called him and I said, "Hey, would you like to sell them?" And he says, "Yeah, I've been thinking about it." I said, "How much do you want?" He said, $1,500. I said, "Done." Right? KeyWest.com, FloridaKeys.com for $1,500. Imagine that, right? So I that pointed those to the site. Interestingly enough, there wasn't one other person doing that in Key West, and they had key-west.com. And what I learned was dashes will kill you, right?
Yes.
Like long domains will kill you. So I built that up, and there was a guy in Key West. He did a sort of like a newsletter for Key West, just about what was happening there, called CyberConk, because conch shells and.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, people who live on Key West that are families that have lived there for a long time are called conchs. That's what they call them.
I call it conch. Conch.
Yeah, conch is the way it's pronounced. Yeah, conch.
Well, we'll have the producer David do a little investigation.
There you go. Okay. So, and he had he was sending it to like 1,500 people.
Okay.
Back then, that was a giant list, right?
It's a giant list, and I wanted to sort of point this out because I thought this is an interesting distinction. I think we did ourselves a disservice by calling them email newsletters in the beginning, because that's what we thought it was. It was the, hey, I've got a newsletter for my church, for my ministry, for my whatever, and hey, here you go. The idea that this would be a revenue generating tool was a foreign concept.
Yeah, well, we take what we know and we fit it into what we don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why in the beginning, most of the data points for email were based on direct mail.
Right.
right? Because we actually had click-through rates before we had open rates.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Because you could measure that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I started. I had a guy who was a programmer that I used occasionally. He wasn't full time with me, but he helped me out. And so we set up a place where people could subscribe, basically a subscribe form, and we collected names, and we would send out when we would list new properties like new hotels or bed and breakfast or restaurants or bars, all that kind of stuff. And now you have to remember, Key West. I started this company on a 14.4 modem.
Right.
Actually, it was a 96, but I upgraded the computer right as I started the company to a 14.4 modem. Also, there's basically two little pieces of wire running from Miami to Key West, right?
Right.
So it was intermittent, it was crappy, it was slow, it was,
Right.
And then you might, you could download something and go make a meal and come back and it was finally finishing. So, in fact, he wrote a little program for me that was basically looped through a flat file to send the email.
Yep.
So when we got to like 2,800 people on the list, it would take like 24 hours just to send 2,800 emails, right? Wow. It wasn't quite that long, but it was quite a while.
No,
it took forever,
but you're not wrong. I remember.
Because it had to do all the connections. It was sending a connection one at a time. It wasn't one connection send 50 emails or 100 emails, right?
Yeah.
It was one connection at a time. And these are back in the days of AOL and the CD-ROMs and
33
all that, right?
megahertz, 80486.
Right. But it was the biggest part of doing this, just selling web pages to people on the site was educating them, because they didn't know anything about the internet.
Right.
I mean,
my nephew told me, my nephew told me I need a website.
Right. Exactly.
Can you help with that, Chris?
Exactly what it was like, right? And so it was, I just educated people, right? And so they go, oh, I'm on the internet, I'm on AOL. And I'd go, okay, so sort of you're on the internet, right? So because AOL is AOL, it lives in its own little world over here, right? So when people say, well, what's the difference of the internet and AOL? I said, okay, here's the way to explain it. Let's say you go to the mall, right? Now you have a couple of options how to enter the mall. You can go in through Sears or Macy's, right? Or you can go directly into the mall entrance. Yep. So think of Sears as AOL. So you can go into Sears. Now you can get to the internet from Sears, but it's kind of hard to get there. So the mall would be the internet. There's never a straight line to go right to the mall entrance, right? You got to zig and zag because they want you to see as much of their stuff as they can. So they want you to buy their stuff, stay in their store. But if you go directly into the internet, then you can decide where you want to go. So if basically you connect to AOL and just open up a browser, forget about AOL, open a browser, search, go wherever you want. And that's the way I explained that, right?
Sure.
But I ended up building up that for almost 7 years. I sold it in late 98, kind of right before everything crashed. Dumb luck, but.
Oh, I remember that era all too well.
Otherwise known as the dot bomb.
That's right.
I mean, I was in the middle of one too. And I remember, you go in one day and you're like, oh, we're not a business anymore. Okay.
No, right. Well, you know what the problem was is the propeller heads were driving the businesses, right? So because the programmers and the tech guys were driving the business, they were a technology company.
Right.
Right. So the problem is most companies will migrate to marketing driven, right? So they were technology driven. And the next step is to be sales driven. And the next step is to be marketing driven.
Right.
That's the normal progression. They never made those steps, right? Oh no,
they didn't.
We made this, go sell it.
We built this because we could.
Right. And we think it's great, so go sell it. But they get feedback going, oh, you should change this or add this, or oh no, just sell with it. What do they know, right?
Sell what we have. Okay.
Right. So instead of listening to sales and let sales drive the product, and then eventually marketing, obviously, they died, even though they had some really good stuff, right? A lot of
well, there were other issues too. Like I just remember people were pumping money in You know,
stupid
when there
money.
when there wasn't a market there yet. It was just,
Right.
I think there was a lot of sort of early movers trying to sort of get in on the gold rush, you know, because everyone knew there was going to be an Amazon, right? Everyone knew there was going to be some sort of hub.
Yeah.
And I remember the portals, and everyone was trying to become a portal. And,
Oh,
you know, there was always, yeah.
Oh my
I
God,
mean,
the word portal, you couldn't be on a call without hearing, oh yeah, we're going to be a portal for car buyers and car portal
right.
for, yeah.
Right. And so like there was this mad dash for how do we become that thing, right? And so there was a lot of people who put money in and lost money, right? And then all of us tech workers were kind of the byproduct, like,
Yeah.
so you know, the market corrected, and
Well,
we were all out of work.
you know, and a really interesting thing is that's also when the 40-hour week turned into the 60, 80-hour week.
Oh yeah, for sure. For
Right?
sure.
And not just for the programmers, but for the support people as well.
Right.
Because what happened was everybody would go home at 5 except for the programmers, and they'd be drinking Jolt Cola and eating honey buns,
Yeah.
programming all night. But they needed support people around them as well. So people ended up staying until 7 at night and 8 at night,
Yep.
9
Yep.
at night,
Yep.
right?
Well, and people were, you know, we'd be getting ping pong tables and foosball tables, and like we'd be building sort of culture
Yep.
around the workspace where it's like, yeah, we're gonna, you know, we played foosball until, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning. Then we went back and worked. It was cool, so cool.
Yeah. No, I ran that business by myself. I used to fall asleep in my chair at my desk because I was doing it all by myself, right? Really, really funny story. So I'll try to. It's been long enough, I'm sure, but I'll change the names a little bit. So when I sold the company, local newspaper came to me and say, "Hey, we want you to help us. We want to be number one in the market with this type of thing. How do we do that?" And I joked. I said, "Well, you buy my company. It's the only way you're going to be, because I own the domains. I already have everybody signed up. I've got, you know."
Yeah.
It was doing very well at that point. And they said, "Okay, well, how much?" And to be honest with you, this may sound crazy to you, but this is exactly what my life was like back then. Because I also lost a girlfriend because I learned if you ignore someone long enough, they'll go away, which is not really what I wanted, but I worked and worked and worked, and that's all I did,
Yeah.
right? And so I asked my accountant, I said, "How much do you think the business is worth?" And she says, "Well, a lot, I think," right?
Right.
She said, "I've been trying to get you to focus on the money side over here," because I would never answer her calls and never call her back. She always just put a paycheck into my account every 2 weeks, and that's all I cared. And I said, well, how much do we make? I don't even know, right? And she tells me, and I'm like, holy shit, really? and she says, well, yeah, you've got like all this money. She says, I put it into a money market for now because you wouldn't tell me where to put it, so at least it's making money, right? So she tells me, she says she thinks I can sell it for like 1.4 million.
Okay.
Right. Which is just at the time was a ridiculous, because this was my first big boy business, right?
Yeah.
And I made plenty of mistakes during this time too, trust me. But I figured things out. So that's what I told the newspaper. I said, this is how much I want. And they were owned by Thompson Publications, right? Lord Thompson, the group from England and Canada and everywhere. So they called me up and they said, you know, we'd like to offer you 800,000. And I'm like, well, that's not enough, right? So I said, I need competition.
Right.
So I talked to everybody on the island, but nobody understood a $1.4 million business that had no assets.
Right.
Right. Other than a computer and a server someplace, and they can't see it, they can't hold it, they don't understand it, right? So I said, let me talk to one of the Miami newspapers that's also in Key West, and let me see if I can get them interested. So I called them, talked to the guy at the internet. He says, yes, we're interested. I said, great. So he said, let me call you back tomorrow. Okay. So he calls me back tomorrow. Not interested. Really? So that day I have a meeting with the newspaper, and all the Thompson people are coming down to meet me.
Sure.
And so what I did is I put two sets of documents together for the sale. One that said Thompson Publications and one that said Miami or Knight Ridder, right?
Right.
And when I got to the meeting with the Thompson folks, I passed out the Knight Ridder ones.
Accidentally.
No,
Yeah.
purposely, right?
No, you're like,
No.
oh, I'm so sorry. What did I
Right,
do?
exactly. He says, this says Knight Ritter. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, pass that back. That's for a meeting later, right? So and they pass them back and I hand theirs out. And they're all like looking at each other, right? And we talk and okay, the meeting's over and I go home. No lie. Hour later, Chris, we'd like to offer you 1.4. Okay, we're good. We're good. So that was my first ever big boy negotiating business deal, right? Anyway, so at that point, that's where I really learned, though, that because email drove traffic. We saw that it drove traffic. It was, I mean, we could just see the spike in visitors, right? The email goes out, visitors go up. And I'm like, this is good, right? This is valuable as a marketing channel. So I went into email full time. I started with, I took a little bit of time off after I sold the business.
In Dominican Republic, probably?
Yeah, probably so.
Well, I went out to Vegas for a long weekend. I went to Aruba.
It lasted 2 years in Vegas. It was a long weekend.
Actually, I went to that weekend. I went, I've always been lucky in Vegas. I'd win $1,000 or $1,200 or $500, right? That weekend, I won $40,000.
Oh my Lord!
The rich get richer.
Isn't it crazy,
Chris,
right?
We need to spend some time in Vegas together because I don't come home with that guy. I came home with $8 one time. Felt good about that.
Yeah. And let me tell you how crazy it was. It was playing roulette. Most of it was from roulette, which is like the highest odds for the house, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, because even the pit boss, he comes over to me and he says, enjoy this because this does not happen very often, right? Anyway, so I started with another gentleman that I met in Florida. He was coming back to Dallas. He was actually commuting from Dallas to Florida for a company that I ended up working part-time at when I was there, because I'd had a little bit of I had some health issues that I had to take care of. And then I wanted to ease back in. So I went to work part-time at this group. And it was a train wreck. And he said, I'm getting out of here because this place is just waiting to die. He said, how'd you like to start a company in Dallas? And I said, sure. I wasn't married, had lost a girlfriend because I ignored her. And so we went there and we started a company called E-News Builder. And it was building newsletters. And we started it from scratch. And the way we started it was by calling chambers of commerce and offer to do their electronic newsletters for free.
Chambers, okay.
And that way we'd have our blurb at the bottom built by News Builder and go out to all the businesses. And it really worked. It worked well, right? To help build up the business. And so we charged the other companies. Right. And that's where it started, right?
Interesting.
That's that's how it got started.
No, and what's interesting is, so you were early on going with the sort of loss leader approach of like, we're going to give this away to chambers of commerce, and chambers of commerce love it because they're overtaxed and they're like, yeah. So you get one little snippet down at the very bottom that says brought to you by E-News Builder. And that was enough. People would get the email and they would read to the very end. And then they'd be like, actually, I'd like this too.
Yeah.
And
once a quarter, we got a dedicated email to them about our business. So
so that was part of the plan too.
So that helped.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's a great model.
Well, it certainly worked then. You'd probably be hard pressed to get it to work now, but but at the time, with 2000, 2001, it worked really well.
Well, I remember it was a weird time.
Oh, no doubt. Because we started when we started the business, we used I Make News. A company called I Make News. They're out of Boston. They were built on Cold Fusion, on Valera's Cold Fusion. Right. In fact,
that brings me back.
Yeah.
CFML tags.
Yeah, I actually owned a Cold Fusion hosting company for a while.
And it was hot. That particular technology back in the day.
It was
Cold
cool.
Fusion. Oh, it could do everything.
Yep.
And it worked. It just worked in a layer. And then
Adobe bought them.
Adobe bought it, right?
And basically almost killed it off, right?
Well, and then didn't it JBoss, I want to say there was a connection there. No, Adobe bought JBoss as well, which was essentially a Java enterprise, not enterprise Java, a servlet runner. And essentially sort of tied Cold Fusion directly to
Java.
to Java.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So, and then we were one of the first. Resellers for Exact Target back in the day. In fact, that's where I met. That's where I met Skip O'Neill.
I don't know Skip O'Neill. Chris, you know?
You don't.
No, I
You
don't
know
either.
Skip?
No.
Oh, okay. He's at. Well, he was at Blue Hornet for a while. He was at Adestra for a while, and then they got bought, and now he works at iPost.
Okay.
But it was back when Dorsey and those guys were, they had a server in a laundromat or something with fans blowing on it, right, trying to keep it up when they first started. I mean, it was like crazy, right? There's some crazy stories out of Exact
for
Target.
sure. So, I mean, I'd be curious, both of you, because you guys have both been in the game for a long, long time, and you've seen the market evolve. What company do you think moved the industry the furthest ahead?
Ooh.
That makes sense. Not because there's ones that exploit other people's innovations and make the money from it, but who moved the ball forward?
This may sound odd, but I'm going to say MailChimp, because
It doesn't sound odd to me.
they made it easy.
Yeah.
For people to do not so well at it, but still be able to do it, right?
Right.
But they opened it up to a lot of people. They marketed it well. They built a platform that was pretty easy to use. They had the what you see, what you get editor to build your emails. In my head, I was ready to say Salesforce or Exact Target. I was ready to say.
Yeah,
right?
That's an easy one to say too.
It is, but I honestly say I think it's more like a MailChimp that really brought it to the masses, so to speak.
Yeah, Marianne, what do you think?
I think it's there's several companies that really emerged out of the late 1990s. Digital Impact, where I worked, I think Bill Park was a genius. And I think it was Digital Impact, in fact, that we mentioned earlier that one of the first stats we used was click-through, because we couldn't measure open. And I think it was Bill Park and his CTO Gerardo.
And was it YesMail back then too?
YesMail was back then, but again, what I was going to say was I think it was Digital Impact that came up with having the Pixel, the technology that the Pixel
open
fire on the open, which was a huge.
That came out of Digital Impact?
I'm pretty sure it did. I'm sure if I'm wrong, I'll be correct.
Well, and here's the interesting thing.
You'll be hammered on that.
There'll be plenty of people that will correct me if I'm wrong on that. So, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yes, that was Digital Impact that developed that technology.
And here's the thing about this particular season. These are the details that we're losing, right? Because like the industry is moving, right? And it's constantly evolving and shifting. But there's these technological advances that really changed how we did things, right? Like the tracking pixel.
Right.
That's a really fascinating.
That was a big deal, right? The tracking URLs, the redirects certainly were.
Well,
personalization was there early.
Yeah.
Right.
But the internet, I think, followed common patterns. I mean, if you look at on the agency side, I'm talking pre-email agency. The innovators were young men and women who started. The big advertising agencies ignored. Yeah, people like you, Paul. The big advertising agencies ignored, online advertising, and so you had companies like Moda Media, Razorfish. I mean, if you're really old school, Razorfish, Agency.com. Think New Ideas, where I worked. These were all founded. And eventually were snapped up by large agencies that when they realized there was business there. And email marketing was very similar. The first, the gunslingers coming out of the gate were Bigfoot Interact. We talked about this.
I remember Bigfoot.
A couple of weeks ago.
Bigfoot.
There was, there's Bigfoot. There was YesMail. There was Digital Impact.
And you have to throw a head nod into Constant Contact too, right? I mean, weren't they the first MailChimp? Sort of.
Sure they were. They were way Constant Contact and Bronto.
Bronto started really small, right?
And all these guys, I mean, Exact Target, the road that got cleared for Exact Target and Responses during the first wave of consolidation in the email industry. And I've talked about this probably on this show, where Axiom bought Digital Impact, Epsilon bought Bronto, bought Bigfoot. Experian bought Cheetah Mail, Info Group at the time, now Info USA, now Data Axle, but they bought Yes Mail. And so all of the independents went away, and it created space for Exact Target and Responses in particular, and Silverpop to a lesser degree, to come to emerge, and as an alternative.
The clouds, right?
Huge, these huge now, Axiom and Experian and Epsilon were massive global companies now, and so from an email marketing perspective, if you didn't want to be, sign up to one of these massive companies, where did you go? You went to Exact Target, you went to Responses, and then they got gobbled up in 2012.
Well, I remember that too.
And the second, what I call the second round of consolidation, where the cloud, in the first wave, these data companies did it. In the second wave, these cloud based companies did it. And so all the, so it cleared the table again. And I think, I think it created an environment where today we're seeing these next gen ESPs emerge. People
the iterables,
and
Cordial.
Where they're actually building in the data management part. Right.
And where they're, Sail Through and Cordial and Iterable, are offering alternatives to, do you want to go with a big cloud-based company that,
or do you want to best to breed
is not even measurable in terms of the bottom line, or do you want to go with somebody who's A, innovating, but B, you're going to be an important client? And you and I, Chris and Paul, it's these successive waves that make the email industry so interesting, because the money is always there. And I don't mean the money, brands are always going to be spending money on it, but the M&A is always there. The investors are always there, because email is a great way. You grow an email company. Look at Chris, you made 1.4 million setting a digital business back in the 90s, late 80s. There's always innovation, there's always money, and eventually we'll see another wave of consolidation.
I think we're on the precipice of it now.
And who knows? Was the database MSPs, then it was the cloud. Who knows who's going to be the next company set of companies that come in? But it'll happen, and then there'll be a new wave of independents that emerge.
Well, and I think a lot of those ESPs that are out there that are good ESPs but crap on the data management, you're going to see convergence where they're going to start buying up some of the data management platforms to integrate and make part of their platform. That's what I think might happen, because they've got to do something. It always amazed me that the ESPs, while they evolved, they never, and they always talked about how data was important, but they never made data important. Right? There's a bunch of them out there that still don't.
Right.
Well, I think, well, you made a good point, Paul, and I think Chris made a good point.
Say that again, Chris.
Paul, you made a good point. Because there were certain ESPs, the fact that the database companies came in and bought some of them, you look at Zeta. Data is hugely important. They have their private data cloud, which is, groundbreaking in terms of the number of data points they have. It's like the third biggest data set after, I think it's Amazon and Facebook. It's like Amazon, Facebook, Zeta Global. And some of the other MSPs did that. And I also think, and I'm going on here now, but this is the kind of geeking out I love. The whole CDP ESP collision is because CDPs do that, understand the data, and to your point, Chris, ESPs are waking up and saying, some of the new ones are saying, we need to get the data, and either, we buy DMPs. Oh, but DMPs went away because CDPs wiped them out. So now we're looking at CDPs, and the marriage of CDPs and ESPs, and I think, and that may be the next wave of consolidation. One will buy the other. I don't know who's going to get bigger first, but I agree with you that there's a natural synergy between those platforms for obvious reasons, and there's no reason why they need to be separate.
I agree with you.
It's odd, because people ask me all the time, what do you see as being big innovations that are happening now? And I always have a hard time with it because there aren't a lot, honestly. Right?
Well, right. We're a tired industry.
Well, yeah, well, it's a, you know, it's kind of like a shovel, right? A shovel works.
A tube.
Yeah, you know, a straw works, right?
Right.
And I was saying this the other day. So I said to somebody, if you were running an email program, 60% of the revenue you can get from that email program is pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, basic set, you know, sending campaigns, set up a welcome and a cart abandonment, you've got 60% of your revenue.
Yep.
And it's relatively inexpensive to do that as well.
Right. You hire robots to do it.
It's the last 40% that costs more.
Yep.
Right? It's the targeting, it's the segmentation, it's the journeys, it's the learning, right?
Smarter pipes, smarter tubes.
Right. But, you know, and I have this fight all the time going, you know, for really small companies, when they come to us, I'll say, you know, invest more in what you have. Don't worry about browse abandonment. You don't have the traffic volume for it. Okay. Worry about other things, right? And still, the basics of getting you the best money for your ROI. To spend an extra $5,000 or $10,000 a month is silly. You're not gonna. It's not gonna return that level of value to you. It's just not.
Well, and I think, Chris, part of it is, I think another reason why a lot of the innovation in email marketing, because I would argue with Paul and you would say that there is a lot of innovation. It's incremental.
Well, it's incremental. Yeah, it's incremental.
It's incremental.
And the problem I think often is, and this is something I rail about all the time, is that it's not oftentimes not easy to use. Vendors don't spend enough time. They spend a ton of time coming up with new innovations, but they're hard to do so that the brands don't do them.
Right.
In the platform, it's like I say, you know, they buy the brands buy a Maserati and drive it like a Yugo, and part of the reason is because the Maserati is really hard to drive.
Right.
And I think, you know, vendors need to spend more time, not just innovating, but on you know, it's like the automakers, like the Japanese automakers a long time ago realized, you know, ergonomics was a huge part of making the car experience better, that you don't want to get in your car and have to figure out how to set the clock.
Right.
Learn how to set the how to set the cruise control, or do hundreds of other things that make it easy to use. And I think, you know, not enough time is spent in at many vendors in not just introducing these new innovations, but making them really easy to use.
Yeah, make them usable by the average email marketer.
So there is usability, but I'm going to throw another piece in here that I think you have to bring in when you're talking about this, and that's just how we overwork email marketers.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like,
yeah,
and so like the number of them where I'm like, you know, we've got this cool new feature. I want to put it in front of you. You're going to love it. And they're like, this is really cool. I can't breathe.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're underfunded because email's easy. Look at the money you're making and when they're giving you no budget.
Right.
That's the problem. Right. And trying to explain the benefits of doing more. The problem is most email marketers want to talk about the process instead of the dollars.
Right.
So if you're selling it to the C-suite, don't talk about how you're segmenting, integrating, you know, dynamic content. Don't talk about that. Talk about how you can take dollars from here to here and what you need to do that. Yeah, that makes sense to them, right? So don't talk about the technology. Talk about the value, whether it's going to increase average lifetime value or revenues or whatever it's going to do. Retention. Here's what we can do with this, and here's the value of it, right? And this is how much I need to do it. And it won't be a lot, so they'll give it to you, right?
Right.
Because even doing the hard stuff is not super expensive, right? As long as you do it in pieces and don't take on too much at once, right? Because that's when shit fails. And if you ask for more money, you got it, and then shit failed, that never works well.
That's not a good
excuse my language. But yeah, it's a you know, small teams. I mean, we work with some big companies that, you know, I mean, these are big companies that have a 3-person email marketing team, and one of them, you know, only works on data or something, and that's all he does, right?
Yep.
And then the other two have to manage everything else.
Right.
And this is where I'd like to toss in on behalf of Chris. I mean, that's Inbox Army folks, kids at home. Inbox Army is truly your backstop. I mean, where their sweet spot is as a digital agency, and why one reason I love them and why Paul and I wanted Chris on is, they're here to help get the grind, the risk down, getting the factory, getting the email out. If you're having trouble doing that or figuring out, your platform, that's who you call. You call Inbox Army, and they're going to get the stuff moving out of the factory. And there's a lot of agencies out there we'll spend a lot of time talking strategy and creative, and those things are critically important.
Of course they are.
They are,
right?
Absolutely,
they're critically important. But you know what? If you can't get the stuff off the factory floor,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And that's where his company focuses. So a little plug for them. I think it's a great company, a great concept.
Yeah, we just try to, we try to keep it simple, manageable, make sure the foundation's correct. Because that most of the time the foundation's all messed up. The data sets, everything is nothing's set up for what they really need to do well. And we talk about it all the time. You build a good foundation, you can build the house, right?
Yeah.
I used to give a hard time to Exact Target as they got bigger, because what a giant pain in the ass it was to work in, right?
Right.
Because
I remember.
I mean, they built a nice house and then they put on 84 additions, and you couldn't get from this room to this room without taking 10, 12, 15 steps.
Oh, right. It was
Right. It was brutal.
Well, and so much of that was Ian Murdoch. I mean, do you remember him? Debian Linux, right?
Yeah.
He was sort of the platform architect of Debian with Sun. And then Dorsey said, I want to, he had this concept of a marketing platform. And that term platform really drew Ian in, right? And so he built Exact Target, the technology side, with the idea is that we're a marketing platform. And so,
and they were very customer driven. So a big customer would come and say, but we want it to do this. And they say, okay, we'll build that. So they built it for them, rolled it out to everybody else. But again, you could get to it, but it wasn't easy, right? You could use it.
Everything was object oriented. And while that works for programmers, it doesn't work super well for the rest of the world.
No. And it was great. I mean, I love the platforms that are really hard because we get a lot of business from them.
Yep.
Right. Because here's the other problem, and I know Chris is going to go, yep, seen this 100 times. And that is the head of the marketing department, president of marketing, whatever, will talk to vendors. They'll see what they like. Ooh, that's shiny, that's nice. And they'll buy it without ever talking to the people who are going to use it.
Yep.
Even without evaluating, can these people actually use this platform?
Right.
Yeah.
You see that all the time, I bet, Chris, right?
Well, right. I mean, and nothing's worse than imposing top down, the C-suite imposing a solution on the people who have to use it, because, passive aggressiveness in email marketing is a big killer of email campaigns. And and your team's gonna, they're gonna drag their feet. They're not gonna, be happy. So totally get that. This is a time, though, Paul, we're almost coming to the top of the hour. I think this is a time where we
that was fast.
Chris, are you okay? What's the matter?
We go to the lightning round.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no, God, the lightning round.
This is time for the lightning round.
Okay.
You're okay with that, Paul?
Chris.
I don't know what the lightning round is, but I'm happy.
We're gonna give you 5 words, one at a time, Chris. Okay. We want the first thing that comes to your mind, your immediate response to that word. It can be a one word, it can be a sentence, but we want your immediate response. And then Paul and I will psychoanalyze your answer.
Judge is another word for that.
Yeah, we'll judge you.
Criticize, that's another word.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
Now here's a hint, though, so that you can be grounded, Chris. This is a Texas style lightning round. So
right.
Texas style. So remember that.
Okay.
All right. Starting off easy, because Paul has advised me in the past I need to start off easy. So
you got to throw up a softball.
Yeah, first one. Remember.
Oh, that's the first one. Remember? The Alamo.
Boom.
There, he got it. He got
Easy
it.
enough for you, Paul? You like that?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good softball.
Okay.
Now we throw the hard stuff.
Right. Second one, pepper.
Jalapeno.
All right, we'll come back to that. Next one, beef.
Longhorn.
Okay.
Or barbecued? I don't know.
Better, closer.
Yeah.
Next one, Galveston.
Ooh. It's terrible. I want to say Glenn Campbell, but from Galveston, oh Galveston.
I know it. I
know
I'm
we
old,
might give
right?
we may give you some bonus points.
But
But I
that's
also
answer.
think hurricanes. But anyway, okay.
And the final one, 5. The number 5.
Oh, Ted Cruz's IQ.
Oh. Well, that's not the answer we were looking for. All right. We're going to go through, and as Paul knows, we like to educate and entertain our
Edutainment.
Edutainment.
Like,
So
edutaining our
there's
our
edutainment
people.
here. So you got Remember the Alamo, correct? Boom.
Okay.
Pepper. What we were looking for was Dr. Pepper, which was invented in Waco in
Oh my God.
1885.
Which is the only soda my wife drinks, by the way, and you'd think I would know that, right? I'm not a fan, but my wife drinks it.
So there was, and just so you know, there's a fun fact, there's no period after the R in Dr. Pepper. Look at,
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
he never finished his PhD, and so it's DR minus the period.
Right.
Yeah.
don't take my word for it, look it up.
Okay.
Okay, beef. But you got barbecue. What I was going to say is that, yeah, Texas style barbecue as opposed to Carolina barbecue or Tennessee barbecue,
Yeah.
which is often pork centered. Texas barbecue is distinct. Is distinct because it's mainly on beef and brisket.
Brisket. Yeah.
Yeah,
Brisket.
brisket, beef ribs. Yeah.
Right. So
I think we would have also accepted Longhorns there as
we got Longhorn. So yeah, that was close enough.
Yeah.
Galveston. That was really the hurricane was the right answer. Not that we revel in hurricanes, but interesting fact about Galveston is it was the largest city in Texas, much bigger than Houston, much bigger than Dallas.
Really?
At the time of the hurricane that hit in 1900, and
Wow.
the city never has recovered. 8,000 people, the biggest natural disaster in our country's history. And so Galveston never recovered after that, and it's not even in the top 3 cities in Texas.
Wow.
But fun fact for those of you at home, DIY channel, sister channel, it's on part of the Discovery Network, has a very interesting show called Restoring Galveston, where
There you go.
I think I've seen that. I've
the
seen a
married
couple of those.
couple, it's one of my wife's favorite shows where they restore the old Victorian houses. And Galveston, the architecture of the houses there is unique. The only other place you're going to find that is like the Jersey Shore, the old Victorians. So the last one, the number 5. This is my favorite one. And I didn't expect you to get this in a million years. So we're free pass on this. But actually, the joint resolution for annexing Texas to the United States that was approved by Congress in 1845 actually includes a provision. I kid you not, look it up. Actually,
Split it into 5 states?
that it could divide into 5 states.
You're
Because
right. I read about that. Yes.
The size was so big that Texans were afraid, well, maybe we're not going to get enough representatives in Congress. We only get 2 senators. If we feel like we get pushed around, we want to be able to split into 5 states. And now they've
brought that up a few times over the years, actually.
I doesn't surprise me. I mean, suddenly there's 10 Ted Cruz's from Texas as opposed to 1 or 2. So
and look, Ted, I like busting chops with Ted Cruz. He's a knucklehead sometimes. That's all. But in reality, if you think about that, Delaware gets 2 senators, right? And so does Texas.
Right.
Yep.
That's part of what makes America great, I guess.
I think it makes it twisted, but yeah, okay.
This conversation could go on for I know years, and so I'm going to cut it off right now and say, Chris, it has been absolutely fantastic having you on the show. If folks want to reach out to you, connect, maybe they want to talk with you about Inbox Army, maybe they want to talk about email platforms or the keys or whatever, something came up in the show, how would they get a hold of you?
They would reach out. My email address is Chris, CHRIS, at inboxarmy.com. Best way to get a hold of me.
Cool.
Awesome. Chris, great again to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Or Chris Marriott at AOL.com. If you're unhappy about anything I said, my address is Chris Marriott at AOL.com.
I at csmarriott1@AOL.com. Proud AOL mail holder. That's a topic for another show. Thanks for joining us.
Guys, thank you. I had a great time.
We'll see you around the email circuit. Thanks.
Take care.
Oh, we never know we never know what we're going to get with producer David. And he rarely disappoints. Very, very apropos, producer David, to what is going on in the world around us. I have many questions already for me that I will hit you with, but before we get there, I just want to say again, thank you if you've made it this far in the program. We really enjoyed talking to Chris. He's been around the industry a long time. He had some great stories, and we appreciate him taking the time to join us this week. Right, Paul?
Absolutely. It really was. I'll tell you, it's such an honor to get to talk with folks like Chris, like Andrew, like folks we have coming up in future episodes, because we're telling stories that are getting missed, right? That are just disappearing in our kind of off air kind of talking through it. I mean, one of the things that we said, it's too bad that person's, crazy, or it's too bad this person's this or that person's this, right? Because the reality is we're all growing older and our memories are fading, and where once something was very, very poignant, starts to fade over time. And again, I think that's why this particular season is as important as it is.
Yep. It's sort of a time capsule.
There you go. Mr. Yeah, for sure. Inman, I need to know about GameStop. You're sitting in a GameStop right now.
Oh, right. This old thing. This is one of my more recent acquisitions.
So let me ask you: Are you part of that mysterious? Are you part of that mysterious Reddit group that is behind this whole shenanigans, or are you just onlooker? I mean, how deeply involved are you in this escapade?
Well, I'm more involved emotionally than anything. GameStop has always been a special place for me. I think about growing up, my parents would drop me off at GameStop on Friday night and not even pick me up until Monday morning. And I'd sleep under the register where it was warm. It's a great place. And they have everything you could ever need. And then things you can't get elsewhere. Like, for example, at arm's length, I've got a Doom Eternal lunchbox. Where else are you going to get a Doom Eternal lunchbox? And then if you need a copy of Gubble for PlayStation 1.
Where else?
Yeah. So it's just a special place to me. And I think that for once, its stock price really reflects its value within our society. And by current stock price, of course, I mean last Thursday's stock price.
So have you?
That makes sense.
Have you actually invested some of your own hard-earned money into this to try to ride it, or are you just enjoying, again, as the fact that it's finally being valued by somebody somewhere, and that the shorts are getting it in the shorts?
More of the latter there. Yes, it's a fun thing to watch for sure. But I'm not a participant other than I've invested. Sorry.
It is a historic moment to watch, and absolutely, like, the people that invest in shorts have always sort of raised a weary eye, right? Like, really, you're gonna profit from someone's failures? That doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? But it's a thing, and people do it, and as long as it's legal, they should be able to do it. but it just feels smarmy. And so for someone to identify that and take advantage of it, it's historic. There's no question.
Well, and what I love is, again, first we had, we had Bernie, and the Bernie meme, and
Right.
that,
Oh my goodness.
which David shared last week with us, and that united the country in many ways. Wherever you sat on the political spectrum, everybody enjoyed a good Bernie meme. Now I think, this is sort of the second phase of the let's bring ourselves together, because I don't care whether you're conservative or socialist or libertarian. You gotta love what's happening. Nobody's going to feel sorry for these hedge fund guys who are getting destroyed by the hoi polloi of Wall Street. I mean, I love it. I love it.
And never before has that been as evident as when AOC, Ocasio-Cortez, and Ted Cruz come together and say, this is wrong.
yeah. Well, no, not that they said this was wrong, but they both were like, we're not gonna outlaw this. We both. I mean, didn't AOC say that we have to look at the reaction of Wall Street, not the.
Yeah. There was some weird stuff that took place there. It wasn't just like, hey, we found a weird thing and we're gonna ride that crease, because that's good. What felt weird is Robinhood.
Yes, Robinhood. That's right. The Robinhood app that didn't allow trading by only allow, and that is wrong. I mean, you can't. The app shut off one type of investor, like us, ham and eggers, and only allowed the hedge funds to trade. And both AOC, that's right, AOC and Ted Cruz both said, you know what? I think we're going to need some congressional investigations into why this app did this and
and there should be, right? Well, the thing that all of my conspiracy theory friends that I love to hang out with said is, for them to turn that off, there are repercussions, right? There absolutely are repercussions to turn that off. They are afraid of something far more nefarious for them to be willing to sort of turn off trading of GameStop, AMC sort of shorts. I think 10 years from now, when we look back, that's the story that we're all going to be like, we didn't know that was going on. Whatever that is.
And it's bringing the country together, because again, I don't care where you sit, you gotta love the little guy taking down the big. That's the story.
Right.
It's like Belle. It's like Beauty and the Beast.
Right.
The story as old as time, as the song goes. Little guys taking on the big guys.
It's like I don't know if you remember playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out, David. I'm sure you may have a copy there with you at GameStop. But when you were, fighting Glass Joe in your first boxing match, it's the guy taking down the big one. No one thought that you're going to beat Glass Joe, but you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think.
Or Raging Bull.
I think everybody saw you were going to beat Glass Joe, but that aside, my only regret is that this happened before we could save Blockbuster, because GameStop was going the route of Blockbuster, and who doesn't miss Blockbuster and their late fees? I mean, who can honestly say that that they didn't enjoy those horrific late fees for a movie that sat around and you forgot you had?
Oh yeah.
And many times you ended up owning. And
right, right. Oh, I own another copy of Top Gun. This is great. On VHS.
How else would I have a VHS copy of Young Guns 2 laying around my house?
Right. Well, Emilio Estevez in that is his acting dots the I. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, forget Young Guns 1. I mean, right. You thought, how could this get any better? How could Young Guns get any better?
How could it?
Young Guns 2 raised the bar. Emilio Estevez. I mean, possibly.
Right.
Possibly an Oscar-worthy performance, And when I drag out my VHS machine so I can look at it again, which I do periodically because I paid $85 for it, And again, considered a bargain. Young Guns 2, $85. But you once again see, you miss the technology, you miss the physical media, everything. It's just, and again, I just think,
didn't Bon Jovi sing the soundtrack to Young Guns 2?
Was it Young Guns 2 or Young Guns 1?
He had some involvement.
Might have been Young
John
Guns
Bon
1.
Jovi. Either way, Chris.
Again, if it weren't for Blockbuster's horrific late fee penalties, I would know Young Guns 2. So I'm very happy about that. Anyway,
well, this is good.
This is good,
I think
folks.
We probably beat this horse into the ground. But
yeah, we can always count.
David,
again, thank you.
David, I'm glad you're at GameStop. If you could keep us, man, the Zoom leg today is spectacular.
Your Zoom lag in particular.
And so I think we're gonna take that and say this is awesome. It's your Zoom leg. You're a Zoom leg, Chris. Anyway, we'll call it a show. We'll say thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for making it this far. Please please subscribe, please tell your friends. We're grateful that we get to do with all of you.
We thank you for sharing your time with us, and we'll hopefully see you again next week with another great show. So thank you.